Okay, so this is how it works. If you use no positioning or static positioning, it's just literally going to be what it is. Okay, so this is sort of normal flow. All right. So this is the same document you're going to see over and over here. All right. Now, if you use relative positioning, what it's going to do is it's going to move it relative to where it is in normal flow. So for instance, this paragraph here, right? I made it red just so you could see it. That doesn't have any effect. But when I go ahead and I do position relative, and then what you do is you place, let's see, actually, well, oops, that was not what I wanted. You do, left or right. Let's see, did I put that in anywhere? I don't think I put that in anywhere, did I? Well, this is float. That doesn't really help either. Okay, well, what it'll do is that it will move it over and down relative to where it is in normal flow. So it'll start here, and then after I write in left or right, or top or bottom, it will move it in relation to that. So to give you an example, I'll just use this. Let's say I take, let's squish this down. See, I don't know if this is going to work because I put inline block. Let me take the display inline block out here. Oops, sorry, hang on a second. Let's do this. Take this out. I'm just going to take inline block out of these just so that's a little bit easier to see. That way they're just normal block level like they would naturally be with the way they are. Okay. So let's say I just want to take this one. I just want to move it down and over, but I want to keep, it's going to start where it is. So I'm just going to go to this one and I will do, let's see, hang on a second, position relative. All right. I'm just going to write position, and then we'll do relative. Okay, which is fine, and it's not going to do anything. So what you also have to do is actually write, I'm going to do top, and then I'll just say, I don't know, we'll say 25 pixels. And then I'm also going to do left, because you want to add, you're adding to the thing there, and we'll do 25 pixels. Okay. So you see what it does is it moves it from where it currently is and moves it over and down. Okay. So that's what relative position does. Now, let me show you what the other ones do. So that's relative positioning. Absolute positioning makes it exactly that from the top of the page. So, to give you an example of that, what you would do is I'm just going to change this to absolute. Absolute. And now you're going to see it actually shoves it up over here. It takes it out of where it was in order and just says it's absolutely that amount. So now you can see this is 25 and 25 from the top left, not from the element above, not from where it was in normal flow. It's going to completely disregard its positioning on when it happens, when the element is written out, and just completely decides to stick it up there. Okay, so that's absolute positioning, because you're absolutely saying it goes there. Fixed positioning is really neat. So what that does is basically if you scroll, it will slide. Okay. I don't think this is actually going to work. Let's do position and we'll do fixed. All right. So let's do, okay. So let's save this and I'm going to open it up in Firefox again. And what I'm going to do is make this really small to see if I can get it to actually show you. Okay. So as I scroll this, you see that paragraph, see that block, this block here? No matter what, I should have done right on red, stays in that position. So it's relative to like the browser window here, not to the thing as a whole, okay? Because like this, it'll look the same as absolute. But as soon as I would go like this, if I had absolute and I scroll down, it would just be where it was. This actually stays with your thing. So this is actually really good if you want to do like a menu that no matter how you scroll is always stuck, like a sticky header or a sticky footer is always on the top or always on the bottom. You can use this and it works pretty well. Okay, so that's the fixed one. Let me change the color of this. So we'll do background color. Let's just do blue. Blue. Okay. Now, if you look, you can see it's on top of it. That's because I don't know. That's just how I decided to do. What we can also do is Z index, okay? So we can do Z, oops, sorry, not that one, Z index. And then I can do like 10. Oops. 10. And if I go over here, it's going to look like I did nothing. The reason why is because the other ones don't have that, right? So instead of 10, actually, I'm going to do, let's just do 1. It's not going to change anything yet. I'm going to go to the element above it. And I also, if you want to have things that use a Z index, you have to place the position first. So even if you don't plan on doing it, so I'm just going to do static, okay? And I'm not going to do anything with it. But if I don't put position static or some sort of position, the Z index will not function. Z index, and let's do 5, okay? And if I click in here, it doesn't seem to be working. Let's put 0. Let's see, it doesn't work. This thing never works quite the way that you expect it to. Z index, position static. Let's save it. Might need to be previewed. Sometimes things don't work unless they're previewed. Okay, so it's still above there, so maybe I did it backwards here. Control S. And let's open it up again. Was it Firefox? And it's... Alright, still not working. Might be forgetting something. What am I forgetting? Let's see. Go back here. Oh, that was not the one. Here it is. Alright. But basically what it'll do is it'll allow one to be over top of the other. I'm missing something. Position relative. I have position on there. I don't know. I'll have to look at it later. But that's what Z index does. It puts one thing above the other. There's also a this float property. I used to use this pretty heavily. I actually don't find it quite as useful as I used to. Basically what it does is that it's kind of like inline block. It's very simple, similar to that, okay? So it'll make the elements like hug one side or the other, and then as you expand and collapse, it'll just kind of adjust to it. So it's a way of sort of doing almost like this. But I would honestly suggest doing an inline block as opposed to this. All right. So design principles. All right. So you may or may not have taken graphic design or an art course, but basically there are the elements of art and the principles of design. Okay. And these are just ways that we kind of look at all pieces of artwork. This is definitely not web specific, but I just want to cover them real quick just so that you get an idea of what they are and how you would utilize them and how you would use that to describe your work. Okay. So it's good for critique purposes and things. All right, form. So form is basically the illusion of three-dimensional shape. Usually it uses linear, which is when you have like 1-point perspective and things get smaller as they go towards the horizon line, right? And you have foreshortening and stuff, that's linear perspective. Aerial perspective deals more with color and things. So, you know, if you look into a horizon line, you look at like a mountain from way off where it gets gray, more desaturated. That's aerial perspective. Anyway. But form usually utilizes those things. So this is a good example of form. I take like a shape and I fake it looking like it's three-dimensional. All right. That one honestly is probably not that useful for web design. Line is what you think it is. It's basically a path between 2 points. Okay. Now, what I would suggest to you though is this: is that you can have a line that's very obvious, such as this, like it's a line that comes and you can see it. But a line also can mean it's an implicit line. So even if you have a shape, this shape itself creates lines just by the exterior of it, right? So it has a line that goes up here and a line that goes around it. You can also have lines that are just the way that text kind of flows and it directs the eye towards a direction. Another thing that you can do with acting or stage and stuff is that you automatically create lines when you have one person look at another person and then that person can look at another person, and it helps move the viewer's eye around a piece as well. So if you have a photo and someone's pointing in a direction, or just generally like maybe they're running in a direction, it'll move your eye across. Okay, so but there's lines just even implicit that aren't obvious, that are just kind of inside of it. Color is obvious, right? Color is color. Really isn't too much of that. Value is lightness to darkness. So you might not have heard that term before, but basically it's the idea that you can have a darkness and a lightness. So it doesn't have to be black and white. It could be, you know, really, really dark red to really, really light, well, it'd be pink. But it's just generally the more, adding more or less white to, and black to it. Space basically is what you think it is. It just means an area, right? So generally speaking, what we do is we always discuss things in positive and negative space. Typically, positive space is the space that the object or subject is in, and negative space is the area around it, okay? One of the big things we're going to talk about later on is how white space is invaluable for graphic design. If you want to make something stick out, more than trying to emphasize that specific thing, it's the amount of white space that's around it that makes that appear more important, okay? Texture is the idea that it's supposed to make, if you were to touch a piece of artwork, what it would feel like. But more than that, what I would say is that texture deals more with breaking up space, right? Or breaking up a shape, okay? Because otherwise, if you have just one style of color, you see how this is kind of boring. But by adding this, it breaks up the form more, okay? And you can add texture in all sorts of things. You can add texture in, you know, just the way you lay out your paragraphs. Like maybe you have bigger paragraphs, smaller paragraphs, bigger paragraphs, smaller paragraphs. Maybe if you have, you know, you just have a picture, instead of it being like just kind of a big graphic, you could kind of have like, you know, things that break up the image inside of it. So principles of design. So here we have them here. So one is balance. So the idea is that it's the illusion of weight in the image. Like here we have, this is an asymmetrical balance. Kind of feels like it would lean to the left a little bit, but this upside down one of this pot is sort of balancing it. It makes it kind of not fall over. You know, think of like yin yang. It's kind of balanced because there's a little one in the one side and the big one in the other one, but then there's white and stuff like that. It's just a visual idea of, you know, how it's like teetering, okay? Contrast is, you know, the difference between elements. So like there's more contrast in this pot than this one because it goes black to white. This one's gray to white, so it's not quite as high contrast, okay? That's how you create, so you can see there's contrast here, and that just creates, this sticks out more because there's more contrast than the gray one, okay? Emphasis, sort of like contrast in a way, but basically what you do is you try to make an element stand out above the other. So in this case, I'm just using color. You can use anything you want, but it makes this one stick out more. Other things, the most popular way to make emphasis on something is not even color, it's size, right? So usually you want to have emphasis on the title of an article. They make the title bigger than the rest of the article because they want to emphasize it. Think about when you read an article and sometimes they'll have like a little quote section where it's a little bit larger font and they block it out. They're trying to emphasize like, hey, look at this specific thing that they said, you know what I mean? That they're emphasizing. Movement, it basically is like what it sounds. It gives the illusion of motion, which is good to try and draw the eye in a direction. So you can see here, this is pretty obvious. Pattern is what you think it is. It's a repeating, you know, element many times over to create an overall look. Rhythm is like pattern, right? So if you think about when you're doing a song, right? That's the best way I like to try to think about it. But if you're playing a song, right, you have a rhythm to it. Well, what it is that you're playing a sort of pattern, but it's a broken up pattern. It's not exactly like dot 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 dot. It's like dot 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 dot. It goes up and down and around, and it's variation, and it makes time, in essence, appear to move slower or faster depending on how they're playing the instrument, right? Well, the same thing when you do artwork. Depending on, you know, if I have, I'm using this as a great example, but, you know, it's kind of like big and bold, then a little white, then bold, and then it moves my eye through the image faster and slower depending on how big or small these things are. If you have a pose of a person or a line, depending on how bent that line is going to make it, it's going to make your eye move faster or slower. So if I draw a straight line down, you can look through that line very quickly. If I draw a wiggly line, like like that, you know, like a curved line, it's going to take you longer to see it, okay? Unity, like what you think. Basically, you unify all the elements together to make one whole piece. You can do that with color, pattern, all sorts of different things. But basically, usually it means repeating things often. The next time is to do a web page advertisement, okay? So what I want you to do is, here's a tutorial. It's terrible. You don't have to do it all like this. I just want you to basically try to make, like, you know, you have those little things pop up that you're going to get a virus or something, but it says, buy this. That's what I want you to do. Just, you know, get a big picture, sort of a call to action, if you will. Here's some example of things that we did. There you go.